I'm April Brooks, and this is Tulsa Talks. Today we're at historic Vernon AME Church to talk with community leaders about the social justice issues facing our community. Learning to be an engaged citizen can be a difficult and overwhelming task. Kristi Eaton and our panelists are here to help give you the answers you need to find ways to engage in your community and care for each other during this challenging moment in our history.
Following the killing of George Floyd at the hands of police officers in Minneapolis, Black Lives Matter protests swept across the nation and world. That included here in Tulsa, where hundreds turned out for events to show their solidarity with the movement. For today's interviewees, social justice is paramount to them. Dr. Tiffany Crutcher is a community activist in Tulsa. Her brother, Terrence Crutcher, was unarmed when he was shot and killed by a white police officer, Betty Shelby, in 2016. The Terrence Crutcher Foundation works at the local, state, and national levels to highlight inequitable policies and practices within the criminal justice system. Pastor Dr. Robert Turner leads the historic Vernon AME Church in Greenwood. It's the only Black-owned structure still in existence from the era of Black Wall Street.
I would have to go back to the worst crime and worst event in the city's history, which is still the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. So to me, everything after that kind of ties to that. Even when you look at present day police brutality, we saw that times 1,000 here on May 31st through June 1st of 1921. If you want to look at, just racism here in the city and the vestiges of it, you saw that full spectrum here. May 31st, 1921. And so I think that the first social justice issue ought to begin with, addressing the systemic problems that were made evident back in 1921 in the Tulsa Race Massacre.
In Tulsa, social justice movements take on an especially important context when you think about the city's history. At the confluence of three tribal nations in the site of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, the city's history shows why the present movements are important for all residents.
A few years ago, the mayor released an equality report, and one of those indicators, the justice indicator, stated that Black citizens are 5 times more likely to be victims of youth support and 2.5 to 3 times more likely to be arrested. And we've seen that over and over again, not just through this data, but through human stories, through listening to some of the people who's been impacted by those numbers. And so I do believe that working on getting police oversight is first and foremost.
As far as policing, as far as reparatory justice, reparations, as far as the fact that not to this day, not one person has ever been charged with a crime, from the worst race massacre in American history. And so that narrative continues about, even today when African Americans are killed by white police officers, they don't go to prison.
And we've been in conversations with the city officials, like the city council and the mayor and his team, trying to get this right, trying to get the right office of the independent monitor. You may have heard it as the OIM that fits Tulsa. And we've been back and forth, and we just haven't landed on a solution. We've had so much opposition, but we believe that we're at the precipice of trying to make that happen.
And when they killed us in 1921, none of those guys went to prison. They weren't even charged with crime. So I think that narrative is something that unfortunately is not new. And we definitely need to have that at the forefront of our social justice fight.
Social justice activists across Tulsa are working on a variety of issues, including racial disparities, which means increasing access to healthy food, healthcare, and other human rights necessities.
So first thing is policing is a major issue. It's sad that we're still talking about policing, but we have a fraternal order police that has pretty much called the shots for our police department for some time now. And we So that's one thing. And so they fought Office of Independent Monitoring. They fought even Human Rights Watch research that found that we have racially biased policemen. I mean, the police department, Major Travis Yates has stated, we don't, according to the numbers, kill African Americans enough. You know, that's preposterous. And he still has a job. You know, we have several issues as far as how certain parts of town are funded, where you are sitting right now, historic Greenwood Avenue. The only thing that's still owned by the original owners on Greenwood Avenue, you're sitting in it. The city owns the vast majority of what was historic Greenwood. And they have given it out to certain entities. And so now you have things like the Arts District on Greenwood. You have things like all these other pop-up districts have taken pieces from historic Greenwood. And most of one of the largest landowners in the Greenwood district now is the city. The same city that sponsored the riot, the massacre of 1921.
And there's been Gallup polls that says that there's a lack of trust between the Black community and law enforcement. And so one of the ultimate goals of the Crutcher Foundation is to figure out how we can build that trust back up between law enforcement and the Black community to bridge the fear and the mistrust that we've had, especially in this day and time, with the series of killings throughout this country. For example, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. And so I think that we're at a special moment in time where we need to seize the opportunity to get this work done.
The centennial coming up, it seems like they're trying to just make nice and make this thing look pretty, and you can't. There's no way possible you can make this look pretty. There's no way possible you can put a positive spin on it unless you do right by the survivors. You only have like 2 left, and the descendants of those who were killed in the race massacre. And this mayor has gone on record saying reparations was divisive. Reparations is justice. You know, how can you allow whether or not something divides be a deterrent for justice? Every day you go to the courthouse, when somebody gets sentenced to jail, a family is being divided. You know, I don't hear this man saying, well, our justice system is divisive. No, it's a part about being just, a just society. Sometimes you have to separate people and in order to pursue justice. And in this case, giving reparation is about justice. It's not about whether or not it's divisive. Of course, no.
Absolutely, there's so much work to be done, and I would just say figure out your level of comfort, because you don't want to just jump in head first. Get engaged, start to do some research, start to learn what's happening in the city, because there's a lot of different areas of justice and reform that you can jump into with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We live in a country that, from her inception, was divisive, right? All the people who could vote were white men with property. July 4th, 1776. We just celebrated a few weeks ago. And so to act as though now correcting that 400 years of racial oppression that blacks have suffered, to act as though now we're being divisive, is almost like similar to people saying when Martin Luther King and then we're marching from Selma to Montgomery, I'm from Alabama, they're being divisive because they're drawing attention to the fact that black folk can't vote. Like, they're starting racism because they're drawing attention to it. No, we're not starting anything. We're trying to bring a remedy to it. You know, and if that remedy is divisive, it shows that we still live in a racist society.
Jump into whether it's mental health. We know that right now, not just in the city of Tulsa, but across this country, that mental health and poverty and homelessness and drug addiction is being criminalized. So that may be an area that you want to jump into. Housing. There's a lot of housing inequities that's going on in this city. If you divide North Tulsa from South Tulsa, food insecurities, that's another area that you can jump into. And so you may want to even plant or community gardens and get a lot of citizens to come and get involved and then distribute food out to some of those impacted communities. So there's so many different areas. If you would like to get involved, I would say go to the Terrence Crutcher Foundation's website, TerrenceCrutcherFoundation.org, or one of our campaigns, Demanding a Just Tulsa, who's at the forefront of policing reform. You can go to the Demanding a Just Tulsa Facebook page and get involved.
Most people in Tulsa are tired of this. They're like so wanting to be done with racism. They want to do right and they want to move forward. It's ridiculous. The people who are out of touch are those people who are in elected office who want to continue to keep things as they are. But the thousands of folks who marched in the street for the last 3 weeks, they want this city to get it right. They're some of them are just finding out about the race massacre of 1921, and they're embarrassed that they didn't know about it. Like, how dare you not teach me about it? And now that they know about it, they want something to be done about it. But those who are in office, they're too afraid of being divisive, but really that's code word for not wanting to antagonize their base who wants to keep this racist system afloat.
Why do I love Tulsa? Because the people in Tulsa have shown me nothing but love and kindness and generosity. For the most part, not being from here, not being born and raised here, and to be treated as a son has really touched my heart and my family's heart. And why do I love Tulsa? I love Tulsa because of the potential of this city and this place and its people who have shown me in just the past few months of public protests how they thirst for righteousness. And the Bible teaches that those who thirst for righteousness shall be filled. And so I joined them in that thirst, and I joined them in that quest for righteousness. And that's why I love Tulsa.
I want to thank my guests, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher and Pastor Dr. Robert Turner. Tulsa, stay engaged and informed.